Welcome to my video, which is a financial update at the 9th of November 2020. Last week was a huge week. I'm not talking about the American election, we'll leave them to that, but in terms of the government support for businesses as a result of the virus. Most of the help that the government has given has either been scrapped or has changed. I want to go through those in this video, and also I'll remind you of the one thing that's substantial that has remained constant. In future videos, I'll look at the detail of the new furlough scheme, which is going to be announced tomorrow. So I'll have a good look through that for you. I've also been asked about who's going to pay for this? Who's going to pay for all of this and when? Are my children going to pay for it? I think the answer is probably no. I think it comes quicker than that. But I want to have a look at that again as well in future videos. So if you want me to help you keep up to date, then please subscribe. You'll be very welcome. And if you press the like button, we can get this message out to as many people as possible. So let's get into the detail. So let's start with the easiest thing, the thing that hasn't changed. And that is the grants that you're going to be given for businesses that have been closed by the government. So for businesses such as gyms or last week pubs or even in tier 2 restaurants, etc., there are grants coming which are £1,300 for small businesses, very small businesses, £2,000 or £3,000. So people have been asking, when is that money going to arrive? Well, it was only announced 2 weeks ago, so be patient. I believe that the councils are going to start publish information later on in November, and that the payments will come through in early December. So those are the grants, and they haven't changed. So let's now move on to the next easiest thing, which is things that have been scrapped. So there was a job retention bonus, which was £1,000 that we're going to get in February. That has been abolished. We won't get the £1,000 in February for people we brought back from furlough, because instead they're extending the furlough. Next one that's been scrapped is the job support scheme. Now, the job support scheme was incredibly complicated. They might bring something similar to it back in April, but I'm not going to worry about that. And it has become unwieldy and complicated. So I'd be amazed if they brought it in any way, shape or form to what they'd announced and what was going to come in just a week ago. So moving on to the self-employed. So the grant to self-employed, if you remember, that was going to be paid in February, and it was going to be 20% of a quarter's normal earnings. That has now changed. It's changed from 20% to 40%. It's now at 80%. So you'll get 80% of a quarter's earnings, and they're bringing it forward from February through to, you'll claim it in November, end of November, and you'll get the money in December. So 80%. Now in August, you got 70%. So it'll be a little bit more than the money you got in August. So you'll get that. There is another payment that's been promised in May, which at the moment is still set at 20%. Who knows what it'll be, and we'll find out that nearer the time. Next, so if we go onto the bounce back loans and the CBILS loans. So with the bounce back loans, you'll be able to top them up. So for most people, actually, they claim the maximum on the bounce back loan. But for a lot of businesses, if your turnover is over 200,000, then you got the bounce back loan, but you didn't bother with the CBILS loan because the administration in getting one of those loans is much more difficult. So now you'll be able to get either of these loans and top them up on or before the end of January. And I can see a lot of businesses that maybe have got a £50,000 bounce back loan, and now they're eligible for another £100,000 or something, and they will take that forward as a CBILS loans, because the whole problem of COVID has gone on for much longer than anybody thought it would happen. So I think if you are thinking about a loan, then thinking about the bounce back loan, maybe topping it up, or maybe going for the bigger CBILS loans might be the way forward. And you do have a little bit of time to do it, although it's at less than 3 months now, so action needs to be taken. Of course, the main change is the replacement of the job support scheme with an extension of the furlough. So the furlough will now go on until the end of March. It will be the furlough as it was in August. You won't be able to remember that, I'd guess. But that furlough is pay your staff 80%, which is refunded by the government. You can top up by 20%. The employer pays the pensions and the national insurance, and either the employee suffers 20% or the employer tops it up. It is intended to be a flexible furlough, so you will be able to have some flexibility and bring people back and then not bring them back. The dates that apply have changed, so now you will be able to furlough people that you've employed in the second half of the year. You do need to have kept up with your RTI submissions. So if you bring new people on, it will be based on their salary as it was in the autumn. So you'll be able to bring new people onto the furlough that haven't been furloughed before based on their recent salary. What you can't do is if you're giving somebody a pay rise, then you don't get the extra pay rise. I think that's particularly relevant for directors, because I can see directors maybe increasing their pay from £8,500 a year to £30,000 or £40,000 a year, and then hoping to be furloughed. Well, they've thought of that, and that they are increasingly looking at the anti-avoidance, and the particular one, and particularly quite scary one, is that they're going to issue the names of all the companies that claim the furlough. I don't think it's actually as scary as the revenue think, because I think there's so many companies going to ask the furlough that your business will be lost, but it might become public information, so you should be aware of that. They're also talking about putting the fact that an employee is being furloughed on the individual's tax account, so that individuals can see that they're being furloughed. And I think that's one way of trying to get them to whistleblow. And they're also very clear that you must have the paperwork. So you must write to your employees and have that letter on file, and also a record of the hours that they've worked. And you must keep that for 5 years. So revenue investigations take ages. And it might be that they investigate in 3 years' time. And in 3 years' time, it's quite likely that you will have lost the information and kept it properly. You must keep that information, because if you haven't got it in 3 years' time, they'll simply claim the furlough back. Some of the ways that they have softened it, some of the things that make it slightly easier are that staff can do training while they're furloughed, and they can do voluntary work while they're furloughed, and they can have another job. So that might be helpful. And you can bring back people who've already made redundant. I can't think of the motivation why you might do that, because if you've already gone to the pain of making somebody redundant, and they're not feeling that great about you if you have made them redundant. But I guess if your business has been completely walloped by COVID and there's no alternative but to make people redundant, then you might want to be able to bring them back into the fold until March. So now I want to talk about Christmas. So Christmas and the furlough. So I've looked at the rules really carefully, and I can't see why you can't furlough staff over Christmas. If you think about an engineering business or a manufacturing business, it's completely normal to have a close down over Christmas. And if they've got low demand, that shutdown will be extended. But there's nothing in there to say that you can't furlough people just for the Christmas period, so you can't have a shutdown. Now, for most officers, a 2-week shutdown over Christmas is something that's natural and normal, and they do, in fact, every year. But I can't see where it says that you can't claim 8% for the salaries on over Christmas. So I think that's going to be really helpful, and it makes up for the fact that they're not giving us the £1,000 £1,000 for each employee that we bring back, which, I'd sort of already spent. So I think that might help a lot of businesses. And I think that, It hasn't really been talked about, the fact that you can have this Christmas shutdown, which for people who work in offices is a natural thing to do. And for factories, I think, if you're manufacturing something, I think it's something they'll be very relieved for. So there we have it. There are the changes. Almost everything has changed compared to what it was. The job support scheme was ditched unceremoniously with, I think, 5 hours before it was about to be implemented. So hopefully there aren't too many more changes to come. Hopefully Rishi has had the weekend off and he's not plotting even more changes. But I guess if he makes changes that give me and my clients more money, I will sort of accept having to go through the hassle of claiming the money. But there are a lot of changes. I think the key thing is to forget certain aspects of it. You just got to remember that the furlough just continues. The job support scheme, just forget it ever happened. It's a bad dream. Forget the £1,000 that you were going to get, and the grants remain the same. The bounce back loans, you might want to claim a little bit more, and particularly the CBILS loans. As more is announced, maybe there'll be more, and as the detail becomes apparent, I will do future videos, and I will do future videos on how is it going to be paid for and what should we watch out for. So if you'd like to see that content, then please subscribe to the channel. And I think these things are important, so if you could like the video, it will help me get the message across. Thank you.